أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you, Dilawaisa. Mr. Nadeem Hussain, Mr. Mudassar, Aqil, Mr. Adnan, Rizvi, Ms. Jehan, Dr. Mahnaz, Irfan Saab, Director Mr. Mohammed Shoaib, distinguished guests and members, good evening, Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome from CFA Society Pakistan. I am Sarwat Ehsan. I am the Executive Director with the Society. A few housekeeping rules first. I'd like to draw your attention to the cards placed on the table. If you want to ask any questions, you can either scan the QR code or go to Slide.do and type in the questions, and the moderator will be able to take your questions. A brief introduction of the CFA Society Pakistan. We are a member of CFA Institute USA and also a locally incorporated NPO. We are 21 years old, and over a period of over the years, we have done various education-related initiatives for our members, and we have done various book launches in the past for Dr. Ishrat Hussain's Governing the Ungovernable. There was Do Pakistan. So in continuation of our book launch series, we have we are here to celebrate the launch of Mr. Nadeem Hussain's book, Bank is Born. And of course, we'll later on discuss the details of it. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to our YouTube series on our YouTube channel, which is called Inspiring Journeys, in which we have showcased the journeys of notable entrepreneurs, including Dr. Zilaf and Mr. Muhammad Ali Tabba and Sayyid Babar Ali, and so on and so forth. So the objective here is to promote entrepreneurship and to motivate and to inspire, and that's why we have gathered here today to learn from all the inspiration that we can derive from this book. So without further ado, I would like to invite our moderator, Dr. Mahnaz Naveed Shah. And Dr. Mahnaz is an eye surgeon, and I will spare myself the embarrassment of the tongue twisters. She has just aced everything in the US and Pakistan related to ophthalmology. So over to you, Dr. Mahnaz.
And Nadeem Saab, I think you need to be here too. Right? We'll just request Nadeem Saab to come right here. And Aqil Saab there, and Adnan Saab right here. Okay. So I have the pleasure of being here today as a doctor, somebody who doesn't belong to the financial world, but I'm here amongst financial giants and giants in technology. It is indeed a pleasure for me. So I'm just going to introduce the author and the panelists. The author, of course, needs no introduction. Mr. Nadeem Hussain is known mostly as coach now at Planet 10. Previously, he has been the founder, CEO, and president of Taamir Microfinance Bank, which served over 4 million people in Pakistan. Prior to Taamir Bank, Nadeem Saab has also held several senior management positions with Citigroup in all major financial centers worldwide. In addition to this, in the United Kingdom, where he started City Solutions for Western Europe, Nadeem Saab has also worked in New York, Greece, Iraq, Bahrain, and Riyadh for Citibank in credit, risk, and relationship management roles. The rest about that we're going to hear about Nadeem Saab will leave to the questions and the answers. So, for our panelists, we have Mudassar Saab. Mudassar Aqil Saab is CEO of Telenor Microfinance Bank and Easypaisa. He currently serves as president and CEO for Telenor Microfinance Bank and Easypaisa, and he is a well-recognized and accomplished professional with over 24 years of banking experience in both the United States as well as in Pakistan, with expertise in organizational restructuring, digital finance, fintech partnerships, and business growth. He also serves as director on the board of Pakistan Microfinance Network. Adnan Rizvi Saab is the head of advisory at KPMG in Pakistan and head of deal advisory for KPMG Middle East, South Asia region. Adnan Saab is a chartered accountant with well over 20 years of experience in KPMG's London and Pakistan offices. He has led various high-profile merger and acquisition advisory engagements for local and multinational clients, covering the areas of transaction structuring, due diligence, valuation, and feasibility. He is clearly recognized as one of the leading professionals in the mergers and acquisitions market in Pakistan. Jahan again needs no introduction. After 20 years as president of Pasha and over 6 years as founder and CEO of The Nest, Jahan now serves as founder and CEO of Katalyst Labs. Jahan is an independent director on the board of the Central Depository Council, the Punjab IT Board, Ideas, and also serves on the boards of several universities. She is also on the Gender Advisory Council of the World Bank and a member of the Prime Minister's Task Force on ID and Telecommunications. So we're going to do this a little bit differently. We've asked Nadeem Saab to go straight to the panelist panel, and so we were not going to have a keynote address. So respect, integrity, innovation, meritocracy, and equal opportunity. These were the core values that Tamir was set to be built on. From our panelists, Mudassar Saab, Jehan, and Adnan Saab, who are all well respected in their field. They're all deeply credible, honest to the core, and courageous to speak the truth. We are going to ask each one of them to comment on whether they think that Nadeem Saab and Tamir were able to translate these core values into a cohesive reality. And if there were impediments that were faced along the way, how were they handled, how were they tackled, and how did Nadeem Saab build what he did? Of course, we're not going to leave Nadeem Saab. He is, of course, an entrepreneur of unparalleled stature, and I think we're all looking forward to hearing his viewpoint that is both engaging and inspiring to all of us. So Adnan Saab, I'm going to start with you as a first question. And as head of advisory at KPMG, you understand risk better than most people. And I want you to comment on how and why you think Nadeem Saab took the risks he did in building Tamir Bank and how he survived them. It's interesting to me, looking at and reading about Nadeem Saab and following his journey, it seems to me that Nadeem Saab is a serial risk taker, but he's also a serial risk survivor. I'd like for you to comment about that a bit.
I would not comment on the serial part of it, but otherwise. So just if you allow me a couple of minutes on the book itself. I think there are a few areas which distinguish this book from many other books which have come out in the recent past. And since I got hold of the book, I have always been meaning to mention this whenever I get the opportunity. So today I have it. And so the first thing, I think the best thing about this book is that it is brief. It is less than 150 pages. You hardly find a autobiography or anything to do with a biography which is not this thick, and which one shudders to just open up, and so one would rather read the flap and that's it. Yeah, so you don't get the time. But this is a book which you can complete in one go or maybe a couple of goes. So that is something which is there, so it has got pointers. And it has got pointers which are both inspirational as well as give you some practical examples. So one of the things which I have adopted is the preparation of the bucket list, which I have not completed right now, but I'm on it. So that is something which is unique about it. As far as risk is concerned, so as mentioned in this book itself, that Nadeem Saab started his major roles were in the area of risk, and also he looked at those things from the other side and had a good grip on how risk can be managed. And I believe that whatever risks he has taken, including Tamir, Planet N and all, are very much calculated risks. And it's not something which he has just ventured into without giving it much thought and without researching it properly. And in addition to the research, naturally the team is very important, and he has the sort of blessings, and also he has got this knack of getting the right people on board, including KPMG on many transactions. So Nadeem Saab has always been a team player. And what I see, and when he's taking those risks, the reason I believe that he has been able to complete most of the things successfully is because primarily because of his follow through. Because a lot of people may be doing research, a lot of people may have conviction of doing things, but when it comes to execution, that is an area where a lot of people they lack. Because they bring the idea to a certain level and then leave it to the, even if it is a team, to just to the team. But Nadeem Saab is not like that. He gets involved, and probably if you look from a bystander's point of view, so he would appear to be the most involved person amongst the team. So I think that is one of the key reasons why he has been successful in taking these risks and then sort of getting on the right side of things.
Mudassar, I'm going to ask you the next question. So if force multipliers are factors that permit people and facilitate them in accomplishing those feats that they would not have been able to without them, I'd like for you to speak to what you consider have been force multipliers in Nadeem Saab's professional journey.
I think, first of all, I have a slight advantage at many levels, I should say. I worked closely with Nadeem at many levels. We've served on the PMN board for a number of years. We were peers and, in fellow banks when he was running Tamir Bank. I was at Finca. And then, as luck would have it, when he exited Tamir, I ended up, I landed at, which became later on Telenor Bank a couple of years later. So I've had sort of like a ringside seat to see what what he has done in his entrepreneurial journey, and I continue to observe very closely. So I think the force multiplier in my view is that he is really a true entrepreneur to his core, right? And I think, and it's a very unique example because it sort of became unleashed after 27 years of corporate career, which happens very rarely, right? And then what? And the second thing, which probably is the most important one, is that he's really driven by his passion. So I'm not so sure that how calculated these risks were that he took. I mean, with perhaps slight disagreement with Adnan, but I think they were really 110%, labor of love and passion. And I think that's what he's driven by. And it's really the conviction. If you think about all the great entrepreneurs in the history and even today, think about people like, Steve Jobs and Elon Musk that we all, look up to. Think about the kind of risks they've taken. I mean, they don't really fit into any kind of, calculation, but they paid off big because of their conviction and passion. So we can touch upon that later. But I think what he dove into this, head first when he started Tamir. Very difficult circumstances. And because of his perseverance, he actually turned it into a great success. So I think that's the force multiplier, in my opinion.
So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to that. And that is that, we've certainly, the book speaks a great deal about what Nadeem Saab was looking at in terms of looking at Telenor and his perspective. But you've been the CEO of Telenor for 4 out of the 7 years since Nadeem Saab exited in 2016. I'd like to hear how you think of Nadeem Saab as a leader. What has been your perspective from your considerable vantage point? And how have you then built on that legacy? How have you taken things at Telenor and beyond?
So, I mean, I think, one thing that I would like to say that, all of us, we stand on the shoulder of other giants, right? So all the work that we do, we have been benefited from somebody else has, planting that seed, and then we benefit from it. So I think in that sense, the biggest legacy that Nadeem, in my view, has left behind that we continue to benefit from is the entrepreneurship DNA in the organization. Because, the business is dynamic. So the nature of challenges that come up are always going to be unique and different. And only those organizations can survive who really can think quick on their feet, can reinvent themselves, can evolve into something different. And I think this is what Nadeem has embodied in his entire career. And this is what we continue to emulate even after his exit. because the market is changing, circumstances are changing, business is completely different than, in the last 6-7 years than what it was when he started. But the brand that was built during his time, especially the Easypaisa brand, which became a household name, which is a phenomenal competitive advantage that we have. And then also this competitive spirit, the entrepreneurial spirit in the organization, that continues to live. And I think that's the legacy that we would like to preserve and build upon it.
That's great. Jahara, I'd like to ask you what you think the role of technology and the ability to adapt with speed and clarity to that technology has been in Nadeem Saab's success and in the success of, setting up Easypaisa, and if you could speak to that.
So I think in his success, only he can answer that question, because how he's used technology and how well he's used it is something that Nadeem himself will be able to say. But how he used technology in order to make sure that there was financial inclusion, that people who were not included, especially in the rural areas and smaller towns, women, people whom the traditional banks were not even looking at as customers or as possible customers. He was able to use the mobile phone to their advantage, not his advantage, but their advantage. And also, I think other than technology, the use of, small stores, post offices, all of that, making sure that that expanded the access to people who didn't have access to financial institutions. I think that is the biggest role that Easypaisa was able to play, and Tamir Bank along with Easypaisa. And I think that we cannot say is a small feat. It's something that nobody had thought of doing at that stage. Now, of course, there are fintechs and there are other people who have come to the party many years later. But I think starting that off and giving people that power to access money, to be able to transfer money. I remember there was a time when I had to transfer money, and I was in one of the smaller towns, and it had to be done quickly. And I went to one of those stores and I tried out Easypaisa, and I said, yeah, this happened in a couple of seconds, this didn't take any effort. So, that's something you and I probably don't need because we have credit cards, debit cards, all of that stuff. But many of these people don't. So I think that itself, the role of the mobile phone, I think, was important, and the increase of the use of the mobile phone was important. And mobile banking, branchless banking, those regulations played an important part. So, it's phenomenal what that has been able to do for Pakistanis who didn't have access at all.
I think you're so right. I mean, just before we started the session, I was just speaking to Mudassar Saab about a TED talk that he did many years ago that I'd come across, and it was called The Sleeping Giant. I still remember it. It spoke about digital banking, and it really sort of, I think, opened my eyes to the possibilities. And I think it's transformed things for so many Pakistanis who have been otherwise disenfranchised on so many levels. So I think it truly is, Nadeem Saab. We have to give you that as a great feat. So I'm going to now ask you a question. So I certainly asked Mudassar Saab about what were force multipliers on your professional front. And I think reading your book, it's fairly clear that the force multiplier on the personal front for you has been Senator Sherry Rahman. And you have an interesting book chapter and several other anecdotes peppered throughout about Senator Sherry Rahman. I'd like for you to speak about that and the role of her as a force multiplier in your personal journey.
Absolutely. I'd like to do that. Before that, I'm going to respond to a couple of themes that were taking place. Adnan's perspective of calculated risk and Mudassar's issue about passion with risk. तो मैं दो अशार का सहारा लूँगा बताने के लिए जो मेरे जहन में क्या था. इकबाल का एक शेर है, बेखतर कूद पड़ा आतिश नमरूद में इश्क, अकल है मैवे तमाशाए लबे बाम अभी. तो जब आप एक एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप या वेंचर करते हैं तो जितनी भी आपकी स्प्रेडशीट्स है, कैलकुलेशंस हैं, दे नॉट इनफ. द पैशन नीड्स टू बी देयर कि मैंने ये करना है. तो इट्स equal or disproportionate decision from the heart versus the mind. Obviously, you need to have your research and everything else, but if your heart is not in it, and heart is just bekhatar, you have to be fearless and you have to do that, and you may lose money, but if you don't have that conviction, then your chances of success are going to be less. दूसरा, आइंस्टाइन said there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. तो दूसरा शेर ये है कि I'm using in this context के एक दिन वो मिल गए थे सरे राह गुजर कहीं, फिर दिल ने बैठने न दिया उम्र भर कहीं. जब आपके जहन में ये आइडिया, जब मेरे जहन में ये आइडिया आ गया था, तो I was so restless. I gave up my bonus. I decided to come back. Now, मैंने कल ही एक कीनोट एड्रेस दिया, उसमें लोग मुझसे पूछ रहे थे कि जब मैं उसमें था इट्स डेयर टू बी डिफरेंट, तो 4 जो मेन पॉइंट्स थे उसमें मैंने एक पॉइंट कहा फैमिली. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur other than the customer lens, the unit economics and a great team, इसमें एक बहुत अहम जुज़ जो है is your family. Your family has to be on board on the same page as you are. तामीर बैंक जब मैंने शुरू किया तो मैंने अपनी पूरी ज़िंदगी का सरमाया लगा दिया था. That money is not my money. That money is my spouse's and my money. It's money that we both own. Now, if she wasn't on the same page as me, then she would never have accepted that कि our entire saving, वो 27 साल की जो saving थी, I went all in. Now, I'm not saying we should do that. Okay, it worked out very well. It could have been horribly wrong. Now, unfortunately, वो मैंने दूसरा काम दोबारा Planet 10 में भी कर लिया. लेकिन you need to, if you're going to become an entrepreneur, it's very different from a salaried job. Because if in my case we had put all our life saving at risk, it could have gone horribly wrong. And if my spouse or my wife wasn't on the same page, could have been problems. कोई एक unicorn बनाने का कोई फायदा नहीं if you end up getting divorced. Okay, so the chapter with Life is Shari Rahman was that how important your partner is in your journey. Okay, now as she is a bigger icon than I am, and I think I know she's far smarter than I am. Okay, but the point is that we have kind of compartmentalized our journeys. She's a politician. I can't be a politician because governments change and I have to be biased. I can have my views, but मैंने इसलिए federal government or provincial government में कभी काम ही नहीं किया. I never want that optics के भाई these two are associates. So no government has ever bothered me because I'm viewed as a businessman who's working in his own domain as opposed to working. But entrepreneurship में क्या नाम है? Jack Ma said that there are dark stormy nights. The people who remain standing in the morning is the company that's going to survive, because there is no way to plan what's going to come down the pike. There is no way to plan. And if you're a large corporate, you have a lot of resources. If you're an entrepreneur, you have your own capital and hopefully some venture capital at risk. You don't know where the next salary is going to come from. So when you get back home and you don't have the person on the same page, बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है. So that's why I dedicated a chapter in my book to my spouse, because she was not only an anchor in the decisions I took for putting our family wealth at stake, but was there. Because also when you're an entrepreneur, in terms of customers, in terms of regulators, in terms of your partners, you have to be fearless. When you go home, that facade comes off, and you have to talk about your anxieties and your problems. And if you can't do that, then that journey becomes really very difficult. Therefore, in my view, other than whatever I was be able to do professionally, and I'll talk about why I think God has blessed me with success. One of the reasons of success was that my family was on the same page as I was, and I think if you really want to build something big, then that's a key requirement. Unless you're looking for wealth and you're looking for a divorce at the same time.
Great. So Adnan Sahab, I'm just going to come back to you now. And as the leading merger and acquisitions professional in Pakistan, I'd like for you to now rate for us Nadeem Sahab's performance and his success in rating his performance in consummating the Telenor-Tamir relationship and transaction.
अच्छा, ये इससे पहले अब नदीम साहब ने शेर पढ़ दिए हैं, तो वो शेर तो वो हमारे जो दूसरा शेर था वो मेरे ख्याल से वो उन्होंने मिस इंटरप्रेट किया. वो शायरी रहमान साहिबा के लिए था, वो किसी और. तो बाकी ये कि मैं जब इनकी बुक पढ़ रहा था और चीज़ें तो इन ऑल्दो अल्लामा ने वो किसी और कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कहा था, लेकिन मैंने कहा ये यकीम व कम अमल पे हम मोहब्बत फ़ातह आलम, तो वो तीनों ये आखिरी वाला जो है वो शहरी साहिबा को भी कवर कर लेता है, तो वो वो सारे एस्पेक्ट जो है ना। तो नदीम साहब का जो ट्रांजैक्शन है उसको मैं डफटेल करूँगा कि I like the transaction so much that we were doing this mergers and acquisitions conference. The first conference we were doing, we did 3 of those with Terrabiz. वो हमारे दोस्त हैं हमज़ा हाशमी जो उसको ऑर्गेनाइज़ करते हैं। तो उसमें मैंने उनको कहा कि जो इन लोगों के नाम थे, तो उसमें नदीम साहब का भी नाम दिया, तो उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि वो नदीम साहब ने तो मना कर दिया, वो कह रहे हैं मेरा तो इससे कोई ताल्लुक़ नहीं है मर्जर्स एक्विजिशन से। तो मुझे वो इत्तेफाक से किसी और जगह मिल गए फोरम पे, तो मैंने कहा कि आपने जो ट्रांजैक्शन की है, दिस इज़ द ट्रांजैक्शन विच यू शुड टॉक अबाउट, एंड ही डिड दैट, एंड आई थिंक देयर वाज रेटिंग्स, एंड अमंग्स द 2 टॉप देयर वाज वन which Samad Dawood did on the sell side of Angro Foods, and his talk on the Tamir Telenor transaction. So this is a really a unique transaction, and it is an ideal transaction from a textbook perspective, where you first sell part of that, then you build up the bank to a certain level, and then you exit completely. Because if that exit had taken place on day one, even though his book mentions that initially the price was high and then it came down, but still the second leg, which has not been disclosed, but I'm sure that is much higher, because the value add after that partnership. So this is the ideal thing to do, that to partner with a JV partner, which is a leading company in its field, and then to build up the entity at a certain level. And this is what he did. So I think the vision, and also again I will come to the execution part, because that is something which is, especially in what we see in our part of the world, is that the execution part is so many times missing. People enter into transactions, take an initiative, but they don't follow through, they don't execute. So in his case, he had set up the bank in a manner that there were proper, so as it is mentioned there, that the HR, and so in a lot of our organization, now things have changed, but at that time, it was like HR and admin and all that were clubbed in a single person if it is a smaller entity. And going to professional firms, hiring professional people, setting up a bank in a manner that a multinational entity can come in and do their due diligence and approve of the transaction. That is not a mean feat. So I think that is something which triggered that, made it an attractive sort of for the suitors. And then once they were in and they saw what was there, then they went for the second leg of the transaction. And not only that, he exited, but the legacy continued, and the transaction of Ant Financials subsequently was as a much, much higher multiple, and which showed the inherent strength of that institution which was built.
So, Adnan, I'm just going to ask you another follow-up question to that. And given the investment horizon landscape in Pakistan, how do you view the initiative of then starting Planet 10 after this exit from Tamir?
Yeah, I think Planet 10 again is an initiative which is, I would call it a pioneering effort, because while the individual startup concept was already there, but having a sort of umbrella under which I think now there are 30 odd companies which are there, and they cover the spectrum. So yeah, and you cannot even imagine the type of companies there are, because we worked on its valuation and all. So it was such a learning curve, because the companies are so interesting and so diverse, the things which they are doing. And to take that into effect, in the sense that having a holding company, having interest in that, and then setting up all these companies and taking a bet on a lot of new entrepreneurs. But again, I would, because I feel what I term as research, was what I mentioned earlier, was that naturally the groundwork which Nadeem Saab had done in his initial career, that came in very handy when he was setting up Tamir, and when what experiences he had in Tamir were very much instrumental in the planet, and they still are. And that led to the digital bank, which has now got the license, and the Rakhmi bank, which is there. So it's all a chain of events, and he has just continued to sort of change the game, and do things which others then start following. And I'm sure that Planet N is going to be very successful, because there are certain companies which are obviously, they right now they have a big stake and in the happenings, and then with this digital front, I think they are going to play a very pivotal role in many of the areas where the economy is going to grow.
So Nadeem Saab, Adnan Saab has said it very well. You play a game really well and then you change the game, right? So I'd really like to ask you, what have you learned then as playing the role of coach now in Planet N and all those companies that you think has been new in terms of your own learning, and what is it that you have learned that is going to be perhaps your most formidable ally in times moving forward?
देखिए हमेशा, even when I was at Citigroup, I tried to surround myself with people who were smarter than me. Now, you have to realize when you're young, that's very difficult because you think you're the fountain of all knowledge and you want to be the smartest in the room. And maybe there were times that I wasn't confident enough to practice this. But starting with Tamir and more importantly with Planet N, one of the biggest learnings I have, you have to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Okay, now, there's one ingredient, if you can get it right, great, you need to be wiser than them. Okay, smartness and wisdom are two separate things. Wisdom comes from experience. So imagine, you're on a 100-floor building and I am on the 80th floor and the rest of the people on the 60th. I'm not smarter, but my horizon is longer, therefore I can connect the dots, I can anticipate trends and changes better than they can. There'll come a time they'll be on the 90th and I'll be on the 80th. But I think one of the things that I've learned is, and I've had now developed the confidence, is that surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And I think that's one of the most difficult things to do. It's easy to say, it's much more difficult to practice because your ego gets in the way. And had I done that even earlier, maybe the success would have been more. But now going forward, including the team that I'm creating for, the Rakhmi Digital Bank, trying to find people who are smarter than me. Okay, that's not easy. Okay, but I am trying to find people, and I have found people, and you learn from them. It's just a two-way street. It's that they're learning from you, but every interaction, because learning never stops. Okay, so this is one thing. My thing of taking risks, and high risks, I would not recommend to all, but has paid off. And I think maybe because I'm very honest, number one, God has been kind to me. I mean, regardless how smart you are, what wisdom you have, whatever you have, if you don't have God's blessing, in my view, you're not going to get there. But God expects you to do things yourself also rather than just dua. I mean, you've got to execute. And I've been fortunate in being able to attract people who, share my vision, share, the way I'm going to be, way we're going to go ahead. And it's the empowerment environment you give them. It's easier to ask for forgiveness, than to ask for permission is my theory. And I've practiced that, and I work that with the team. And we've got companies, we've got 40 companies in the Planet Group now. I know we're talking about more the Tamir journey, and some of them, are already worth $30, $40 million. We started them from scratch. And these guys are 35, 38 years old, 40 years old. I mean, 40 years old, I was working with Citibank, being very happy. These guys are worth $5, $10 million already. So in the same age journey, they're far ahead than what I was. But I think, where I am right now, they'll eventually catch up, and that'll be the best thing for me. Okay? And it's the team. I keep saying that, you're as good as your team. and you're as good as the weakest member of your team, and you need to take that team together. I think Irfan Saab years demonstrated what a team does. You know, when a bank like his bank becomes the highest valuation compared to the capital they've deployed, there's got to be a success story over the huge talking about, you know, how Mizan Bank, and I'm just talking about leadership, was able to, you know, surpass the likes of HBL and UBL in terms of valuation and profitability. So it's the team you put together. And obviously, again, I'll say that the decision making cannot be by consensus, because consensus is the lowest common denominator. And this is something that I learned from Margaret Thatcher when she came on this series. She said, you know, consensus. That doesn't mean that you don't have to listen to everybody. But it's not, I mean, because when you do consensus, you get the least common denominator, which may not be the most favorable outcome. So as a leader, you've got to take that leadership role and exercise that. But your decision should come after you've got the inputs and the views. And if the logic by your team is far stronger than yours, then you have to defer to that. That's what makes success happen.
No, I think you make a really good point. And I think you've spoken about your journey, about Irfan Saab's journey. And I think you're right. I think to whom much is given, much is expected. And I think Planet 10 and Mizan have both been examples of that. Jahara, I'd like to ask you if you think that literacy is the same as digital literacy. And if they're not, and if they're different, then, you know, how has this impacted the formation of Easypaisa and its success?
So literacy and digital literacy and financial literacy are all very different. So the only common denominator is that it's literacy of one kind or the other, right? So literacy, unfortunately, we're very, very low down there as far as literacy is concerned. Digital literacy, because we have so many young people who take to digital platforms, we have seen a very fast rise in the use of digital platforms. And very often it is just for fun and games, but very often it is also to expand their businesses, in order to create jobs, in order to grow their companies. And so I think, and also now, as far as e-commerce is concerned, I know we're still in the early stages of e-commerce, but it's being used by women at home, it's being used by large organizations. So when you look at Daraz and people like that. So I think it's, and especially during COVID, so many of us have always used Amazon and platforms like that to order books and things like that, but never locally. I don't know why that was. There was a resistance to trying to order anything locally. Maybe lack of trust was one of them. But during COVID, I started ordering a lot of things online, and now it has become a habit. It's become a way of life. So whether it's fruit or vegetables, whether it's books, whether it's clothes, whether it's shoes, well, shoes maybe not so much because you want to try them on. But most things, electronic items, most things, many of us who would never have dreamt of doing it online are doing it online. So digital platforms, the more you trust them, the more you see that they work. And especially, I think the key factor is that if you're not satisfied, the returns part is extremely important. That if the customer is not satisfied, they should be able to return the product. So that has happened. So I think Pakistan has benefited from that. And many people who are doing research in this area say it's not just Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. We're looking at much smaller towns who are using digital platforms. And that's great. Of course, with the increased use of technology, you are going to see that happen more and more. Financial literacy is again a very weak area. And I'm not even just talking about people who are not literate, not being able to use financial platforms. Startups, people like you and me, many of us, really financial planning, budgeting, all of that is a very weak area. We keep people to do that. So when we have to do it ourselves, it becomes a challenge. And so I think financial literacy, the ability to use financial tools and platforms, that is becoming now something that has become necessary simply because we have to do it on the run. We cannot wait for that to happen. So Easypaisa, I think, and products like that have become really very useful tools for people to use for their own benefits. And also, I think it led to many more people creating products and services for people in Pakistan.
Right.
And that is, I think, a more important thing. Because as a leader in producing something innovative, you want other people to produce things that are better. And that is, I think, that has happened and that will continue to happen. And it will expand to all of Pakistan as the use of technology really becomes, as technology becomes cheaper and more accessible.
Right. Mudassar, what do you see as the true disruption that the disruptor that Easypaisa has been, and how has this impacted lives in both rural and urban Pakistan?
So let me just share some broad numbers with you, and then I'll talk about, I think, how it was built. It was, I think, in many ways, the Pakistani market was ahead of its time. Some of the terminologies that we hear today were not really in vogue at the time. But today, just to give you some perspective, that 1 out of every 4th Pakistani adult is a registered Easypaisa user. So we have 34 million registered account users in the country. 15 million of these are device active users, so they actually open our app at least once a month. 12.5 million of those do at least one debit transaction every month. So these are unprecedented numbers if you think about the impact it has had. So you can go to any corner of the country, be it a village, in the mountains, in the deserts, you will see that it is benefiting people in terms of financial inclusion. And it all started, with very humble beginnings, with a thought that Nadeem had, an inspiration that he had in terms of, what was happening in Africa and why can't it can be replicated in Pakistan. Then he found a telco partner. We came up with a model that can work in Pakistan. And at the time, there was no platform business model that anyone talked about in the world, right? I mean, this is pre-smartphone era almost. So it was just starting. I mean, iPhone came out in 2007. Easypaisa started in 2009. Pakistan didn't have 3G connectivity until like 2015. So this was much, much earlier than that. Similarly, there was no one talked about network effects, right? So everyone now talks about, how to actually build ecosystems and how, small networks and engagement business models. So I think this was really the clear thinking, very clear vision, and taking a long-term view in terms of, where the world is headed. And then ability to experiment, ability to continue iterating until you get it right. I mean, I think those are the amazing things that were done in the early years. And just to give you some, clarity on the business model, that what exactly, all platforms do. Easypaisa is a platform, and there are other platforms also. Basically, these are engagement platforms, right? So the use case can be different. So in case of Facebook, it's social media. In case of WhatsApp, it's chat. And in case of Easypaisa, these are everyday financial transactions. But all they're aspiring to do is to create user engagement. And once you create user engagement, then the second thing you want to do is to create a network effect. So where if, you invite other people, the value of the network increases, right? So, and then the third one is that then you can monetize it in multiple different ways. So I think just because all of these terminologies and books were not written on platform economy and et cetera, all of that, but unknowingly, because of clear thinking, this is what Nadeem was doing at the time. So Easypaisa, even Easypaisa 1.0 that we call it now, which is OTC, over-the-counter cash transactions, using 2G phones, was a beautiful network if you think about it. Because it incentivized other people to join the network, and that's how the network grew. It was a beautiful ecosystem of merchants, telco, and the bank all working in unison together. It was a beautiful triangle of a partnership. Again, that was ahead of its time. And then how it created an ecosystem which was built on everyone's benefit. It was like a win-win partnership, right? So the incentives were built in. So the entrepreneurs were actually putting in their own money to actually grow the network. That's the other beauty of it. So I think this, if anything at all, the biggest I think success or that I take away from the Easypaisa story is that how this all started. Because I think now we can look at it. We are doing so. The OTC business is now almost finished, which is how it all started. But that created the entire network model and the Easypaisa brand. And now we can, innovate on top of it and create new value, and we continue to do that. I mean, I can share some numbers with you. I mean, we are clocking 5,000 transactions per second. This 6% of Pakistan's GDP moves on Easypaisa's rail. 25% of Pakistan's cash in circulation is digitized. Sorry, 12.5% is digitized by Easypaisa. So. But I think the real genius was in how it all started, because as they say, when you were, as the billionaires of the world will tell you, that making the first million is the most difficult one. So I think it's starting something from scratch and getting it to actually work is the most difficult part. It takes a lot of perseverance, experimentation. And I think, as Nadeem correctly pointed out, we have another inspirational story of this is exactly how Mizan Bank started. Very humble beginning, not even a banking license in the beginning, just one branch. And look, I mean, in the lifetime of just one founder, So I was speaking, by the way, we have just hit a very important milestone. We became profitable after 5 years in the month of March. So we had a small celebration last night here, and team were asking me questions and trying to give me credit, and I told them, like, wait a minute. So it is really the founder CEOs who actually really set the tone and take the risk and set the foundation and do things which are really, really big and courageous.
And really overcome the inertia.
And overcome, all kinds of obstacles. Though मेरे जैसे जो मुलाजिम CEO होते हैं, वो बड़ा किसी के कैपिटल पे इतने बड़े गैम्बल नहीं ले सकते, हमें तो इजाज़त ही नहीं होती है. Right? So I think that's the important thing that we must recognize and celebrate about Nadeem and Irfan Saab and other entrepreneur CEOs and founder CEOs.
Absolutely, great. So Nadeem Saab, tell me a little bit about the Tamir Sarmaya Karza program, where you had people taking loans against their gold ornaments. Was this an idea before, ahead of its time? And is this an idea that now has particular relevance given our economy?
देखिए, कहते हैं necessity is the mother of invention. So you have to realize कि जब हम, the team that I had, Brigadier Tariq Maur, Shahid, Mustafa, Ali Abbas Sikandar, we were the 4 co-founders of Tamir Bank. We had no microfinance experience. And I had only worked 5 years out of my 27 years of Citigroup in Pakistan. So, I was coming back to Pakistan with 5 years of experience under my belt. I had never been an entrepreneur. At the age of 48, I was becoming an entrepreneur. And I had never done microfinance before. So, I mean, a lot of things taxed, but the arrogance of youth or the exuberance, of creating something led us to do this. So, there was a lot of learning experience. मैं कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बता रहा हूँ कि तामीर समारा करता आया किस तरह. हमने कराची में बैंक शुरू किया और हमने कहा कराची की पॉपुलेशन 15-20 मिलियन की है, तो इतनी बड़ी मार्केट है, तो हमें तो कराची से बाहर जाने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं होगी. हमने 8-10 ब्रांचेस कराची में बना ली. अच्छा, अगेन ये वॉज इनिशियल एरोगेंस ऑफ बीइंग सिटी बैंकर. बाकी कोई माइक्रो फाइनेंस इदारा कराची में ऑपरेट नहीं कर रहा था, या अगर कर रहा था तो बहुत छोटे पैमाने पे कर रहा था. दिस शुड हैव बीन अ रेड फ्लैग कि यार आप पहली मार्केट में आ रहे हैं, जो 10 साल से माइक्रो फाइनेंस कर रहे हैं, 15 साल से कर रहे हैं, वो कराची में नहीं है, और आप अपनी लीड कराची से कर रहे हैं. 1 साल के बाद हमारे ज़ीरो डिफ़ॉल्ट हुई और 25,000 कस्टमर आ गए. तो हमारी जो सोच थी वो एक नॉच और एरोगेंस की बढ़ गई कि इनको तो मार्केट का पता ही नहीं है. हम आ गए 4 सिटी बैंकर, हम पूरी मार्केट को सिखाएंगे कि माइक्रो फाइनेंस क्या होती है. The second year, and that's in the book, our default rate went up to 25%. So here we have a cash burn because you need to set up your entire infrastructure, और उसके साथ डिफ़ॉल्ट आना शुरू हो गया. वो डिफ़ॉल्ट इसलिए आया कि इन आर एक्सूबरेंस हम लोन देते जा रहे थे, और कराची की मार्केट जो वजह थी, बाकी इदारे नहीं थे. एक बिग स्वॉथ ऑफ कराची MQM के साथ, एक जो था पीपल्स पार्टी की अपनी थी, एक ANP था. तो बहुत सारे सियासी तंजीम थी जो एरियाज़ में मुकीम थे, और बहुत लोग घबराते थे कि उस एरियाज़ में काम करने के लिए, और हम ब्रांचेस वहीं खोल रहे। जो पहली ब्रांच हमने तासीर टाउन में खोली, दूसरी औरंगी में खोली, तीसरी कोरंगी में, तीसरी सुराब गोट में। तो वो जो सिटी बैंक में जो एरियाज़ हम रेड लाइन करते थे कि हमने यहाँ नहीं जाना, हमारा उल्टा हिसाब था, हमने कहा हमने डिफेंस नहीं जाना है, हमने औरंगी जाना है। तो दैट वाज द बिग लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस। पहले साथ में हम सूट और टाई भी पहनते थे, वो भी उतर गई। सेकेंड ईयर में जब 25% का डिफॉल्ट आया, तो एक तो कॉल टू कैपिटल आया, तो वट एवर प्राइस मनी हैड लेफ्ट, मुझ पर $6 लाख आ गए, तो वही मैंने लगा दिए, और बाकी इन्वेस्टर्स ने भी लगा दिया, मैं $1 मिलियन और लगाने थे। लेकिन तजर्बा ये था कि हम माइक्रो फाइनेंस हमने जो पहले साल की थी, हम समझ नहीं थे। तो उस वक्त हमने बहुत सारी तब्दीली बैंक जब, और मैं आपको बताऊं कि जैसे मुदस्सिर कह रहे हैं कि व्हेन यू आर अ पेड CEO, आई एम नॉट सेइंग यू नॉट रिस्पॉन्सिबल, बट इफ यू आर अ ओनर CEO, यू लर्न मच फास्टर बिकॉज योर स्किन इज ऑन द लाइन। तो वी सेड ओके, हमने क्या गलतियां की हैं, एंड दिस वाज द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ द टीम, इट वाज एबल टू पिवट। वरना हम एक साल के बाद बंद हो जाते, क्योंकि हमारा सरमाया, आई मीन वी पुट इन एडिशनल कैपिटल, उसके बाद बहुत मुश्किल होता मजीद कैपिटल रेज करना उस वक्त।
But as you said, there's a lot of skin in the game.
So that's in the game law.
Think
तो
about
मैं
that.
इसको आपको आ रहा था कि हमने क्या किया, कि हमने कहा कि अदर दिन कराची से बाहर निकले, सो वी पिवटेड, वेरिफिकेशन प्रोसेस करें तो सेकेंडरी वेरिफिकेशन होगी, एंड देन वी सेड पाकिस्तान इज अ गोल्ड सोसाइटी। 1947 से हर साल 10 से 15 मिलियन डॉलर या तो बर्थ ऑफ गोल्ड या इम्पोर्ट होता है, 99% जो होता है जेवरात की शक्ल में होता है। और ये लोग जिनके पास ये एसेट है, मेरा ख्याल है कि एसेट क्लास से लिहाज से, अदर देन प्रॉब्ली डॉलर होल्डिंग्स, gold is one of the highest asset class that's not counted anywhere, and we have that. तो ये लोग जो हैं, जब ये उनके पास सोना होता है, जब उनको कर्जे की ज़रूरत होती है, तो ये जाते हैं पॉन शॉप में बेच देते हैं। तो we created a product where you could give your gold ornaments, we would take the gold content and against then lend you money if you're a farmer for productive purposes, if you're a non-farm in cities. The point now is that this product, I believe, is going to be the biggest component given the economic environment that we are going to go into. और इसकी हमने अब दूसरी कंपनी खड़ी कर दी, गोल्डफिन, from people who started that. They've raised money, और उनके पास ऑलरेडी 4 बैंक्स आ गए, 2 माइक्रोफाइनेंस बैंक आ गए, including people present over here. So this is the secure way in which you can lend in the environment we are in, where potential default is going to go much higher than where it is right now.
Nadeem sir, shifting gears a little bit, in your book, it seems to me in reading that book that autonomy, you're having autonomy, has had a great deal of weightage in your decision making. Can you talk a little bit about that? How important is it to you in your decisions, in everything that you do?
As a CEO,
and also I do want to ask also, in exiting Tamir, how did you deal with that?
when you're talking about autonomy in the business sense, घर में मेरी autonomy नहीं है, मैं दफ्तर की बात करूँ, okay. So it's very important as a CEO. देखिए, one of the reasons of our success was our ability to pivot and take faster decisions than some of the other organizations. उसके अंदर आपके पास autonomy बहुत ज़रूरी होती है to pivot and take decisions, because एक अगर डिसीजन में 6 महीने लग जाएं या 4 महीने लग जाएं, which is the typical case with most commercial banks or large multinational governance structure होता है. Now, how do you get that autonomy? We got the autonomy not because we were 49% owners, but we were able to provide the confidence to the board कि जो हम डिसीजन ले रहे हैं या empowerment आपसे मांग रहे हैं, तो बैंक को हम तबाह नहीं कर देंगे. I think any CEO who has the confidence of that board in be able to get the empowerment and take fast decisions. देखिए, हर बारी हर वक्त आपका जो decision है सही नहीं होगा, but sometimes decisions even wrong done quickly, if they are wrong you get to pivot. और जो हम बात कर रहे हैं इजी पैसा की, अब आपको बताऊं इजी पैसा की ओरिजिनल थॉट प्रोसेस थी जब हमने टेलीनॉर के साथ डील की थी कि हम इंटरनेशनल रेमिटेंस करेंगे. हमारे पास 60,000 लोकेशन थे, बैंकों के पास 15,000 लोकेशन थे, हमारे पास पूरे पाकिस्तान में लोकेशन थे, जो सैटरडे संडे खुले रहते थे. सैटरडे संडे को गोल्फ खेलने नहीं जाते थे, रात के 11-12 बजे तक आपकी नेबरहुड में पैसे मैसर कर सकते थे। एक फंडामेंटल इशू बाद में निकला कि भैया रेमिटेंस तो एवरेज 40,000 की होती है, ये हमारे छोटे किरियाना स्टोर वाले अगर 3 कस्टमर आगे कैश आउट किस तरह करेंगे? That's when we pivoted to domestic remittance, which became at that time the biggest bread earner. उसकी वजह से इजी पैसा ये नेटवर्क इफेक्ट हुआ कि आप हवाला, हुंडी, पोस्ट ऑफिस की जगह, जैसे जहां ने कहा, आप एक इजी पैसा दुकान पे जाएं और आप मल्टीपल अदर प्रोवाइडर्स हैं, 1 मिनट के अंदर 60,000 जगह वो पैसा मैसर हो जाएगा. That was revolutionary. What's revolution? Revolution is defined as a very large number of people changing their behavior. And that was what Easypaisa was able to do. And जैसे मुदस्सर ने कहा कि ये कोई innovation नहीं था. This was replication of successful usage. The innovation was adapting it to the Pakistani market. हमसे पहले M-Pesa मौजूद था, which was the world leader. Gcash था. तो ये लोग और बाकी लोग सोच रहे थे. We were able to go to market first because we had conviction and we had a team and we had shareholders who we had. मैं आपको एक और एनेक्डोट बताता हूँ. जब हमारी डील हो रही थी टेलनोर के साथ, अब तो वो पीरियड ऑफ जो कहते हैं स्टैच्यूर ऑफ नॉट बीइंग एबल टू टॉक खत्म हो गया. तो उन्होंने कहा जी हमें तो 75% ओनरशिप चाहिए. अब आप ये सोचें कि उस वक्त स्टेट बैंक ने कभी भी किसी टेलको को 1% ओनरशिप नहीं दी बैंक में. तो उनके लिए एक बहुत बड़ा स्टेप था कि एक टेलको जो उनकी डायरेक्ट परव्यू में नहीं है, पीटीए के नीचे आता है, कि उसको ओनरशिप किस तरह दें. और वो भी बैंक मान रखता कि 76% ओनरशिप. मैंने कहा आपको 76 क्यों चाहिए, आप 51 ले लें, आप 41 ले लें. उन्होंने कहा जी 76 में यू हैव एब्सोल्यूट कंट्रोल, हम आपको फारिग कर सकते हैं. मैंने कहा अच्छा ठीक है. मैं स्टेट बैंक के पास गया, उन्होंने बोला आप पागल हो गए, 76 की हम तो उनको 15% नहीं देंगे. तो आई हैड टू नेगोशिएट. देखें ये 51% आप उनको दे दें, फिक्र नहीं करें, क्या नाम है, ये जो वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन आएगा ये फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन के लिए आप रिग्रेट नहीं करेंगे. टेलर को मैंने कहा जी आप उससे आज इस्तीफ़ा ले लें, ब्लैंक आप साइन करना है, मैं कर देता हूँ. क्योंकि मुझे यकीन था कि स्टेट बैंक को मैनेज करने के लिए इनको हमारे पास आना पड़ेगा. और अनलेस आई कमिटेड फ्रॉड या मैं कोई ऐसी चीज़ करता जो बिल्कुल इनके गवर्नेंस स्ट्रक्चर से बाहर होती, ये व्हाई वुड दे वांट टू गेट रिड ऑफ द पीपल हु हैड एक्चुअली anticipated the branch banking before anybody else. So that was the formula, that was the confidence of the team ke Shisha Kwapti ki 76. That's why we were able to bring them down to 51 from 76, and that 25% was the real kicker in valuation at the time we exited. जो आप बात कर रहे थे कि उस वक्त अगर हमको 76% दे दे तो जो exit valuation होती है वो बहुत कम होती है. So those are all lessons that you learn. I mean, और एक नेटिव इंटेलिजेंस होती है, एक आपकी टीम होती है, एक आपको उस वक्त सोचना पड़ता है कि मैं किस तरह काम करूं. एंड दैट्स वेयर दिस, मैं कह रहा हूँ कि दिस वेयर द विजडम कम्स फ्रॉम, कि जितने आप तजर्बे करते हैं, जितनी आप मार खाते हैं, दैट्स वेयर योर विजडम कम्स फ्रॉम. स्मार्टनेस इज इनहेरेंट, वो आपको मिलती है. विजडम जस्ट कम्स थ्रू एक्सपीरियंसेस.
सो नदीम साहब, आप विजडम की बात कर रहे हैं. लुकिंग एट योर लाइफ थ्रू द लेंस ऑफ टाइम, व्हाट थिंग्स हैव रिमेन्ड कांस्टेंट फॉर यू एंड वेयर हैव प्रायोरिटीज चेंज्ड?
आई थिंक मेरी ज़िंदगी में रिस्क टेकिंग हैज़ रिमेन कॉन्स्टेंट. मुझे लोग कह रहे थे कि तामीर बेचने के बाद गॉड वाज काइंड टू मी. आई हैड इनफ फंड्स, लेट्स से कि मैं रिटायर करके आराम से ज़िंदगी भर काम करता.
वो तो हमें अदनान साहब ने बता दिया.
लेकिन ये देखिए आप अपने ध्यान में, व्हाई डिड आई सेल आउट? बिकॉज एट दैट टाइम दो चीज़ें. एक मैंने सोचा कि जो कुछ मैंने इसमें सीखना है मैंने सीख लिया है, और I can use this knowledge for 100 institutions as opposed to one institution. And I also felt that it took us 11 years. देखिए ये तो public knowledge है कि Ant ने value किया, Telenor Microfinance, what, $410 million, public knowledge. First half an icon, unicorn, made in Pakistan by Pakistanis with some, obviously ownership. बाहर की देखिए हमारा management 99% जो था local था. Okay, whether it was Easypaisa or whether it was Tamir Bank or even the GSM side. So it's possible to build a unicorn also out of this. और एंड फाइनेंशियल से शातिर इन्वेस्टर कोई नहीं है. वो बाकी लोग इतना नहीं है कि जी पैसे फेंक दें. वो उन्होंने पूरी दुनिया देखी है. They're one of the world's largest financial services company. So if you can build a company of $410 million, That means, you figured something, what makes. So Tamir Bank, just Adnan keh rahe the, was built on day one, reverse engineered for sale. अच्छा मेरा philosophy है and people disagree. मेरे passion जो है वो मेरे बच्चे और मेरे कुत्ते हैं, मेरी companies नहीं है. I mean, in the sense that I don't feel wedded कि मैं company बना के ये 4 generations दूंगा. I create companies which can be exited so I can create new companies and interact with more people. The people who are in those companies benefit as well. So unlike, maybe industries तो कहते हैं ये generation में चलेगी company, बच्चों के लिए बनाने. वैसे ही मेरी 4 बेटियां, उनको कोई शौक नहीं है फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज का, तो कंपनी बनाने का कोई फायदा नहीं है. तो दैट मतलब कि आप जो बात कर रही हैं कि इट्स दिस थिंग ऑफ रेस्टलेसनेस वेयर आई वांट टू क्रिएट समथिंग मोर. एंड आई टेल यू माय बिगेस्ट हाई कम्स फ्रॉम वर्किंग विद द कंपनी CEOs and founders I work, I invest in. It's just a breath of fresh air. These are 30-35-year people. They have a difficult time keeping pace with me because I start my day at 4 a.m. ये तो मैं उनको कहता हूँ कि यार जरा सुबह करो. रमज़ान में सब लोग चले थे, मैंने बेटा रमज़ान के बाद देखेंगे कौन ये सुबह 5 बजे से जागा. आई एम नॉट सेइंग यू नीड टू. आई जस्ट फील कि अगर आप 4 बजे शुरू करें आपको 3 घंटे मिल जाते हैं बिफोर द रेस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड वेक्स अप, एंड दैट्स वेरी प्रोडक्टिव यूज ऑफ योर टाइम. द थिंग that remains constant again, Mahnaz, has been the risk taking. It's the desire to interact with people who are far younger than me, mentor them, grow them, learn from them, and hopefully make them better entrepreneurs and far wealthy than they are right now. It's looking at changing, creating legacies. I think many people, this is not just my legacy, many people were involved in this Easypaisa thing, and Mudassar is now taking it to a different level. So, it's always great for me to see, where Easypaisa is getting to. And it's great to see the people who created it, and many of them are in this room, and now they are part of the Rakmi Bank that we are looking to launch. So that's remained. I'm spending more personal time on things that satisfy me rather than just business. So 5 a.m., 5:30 I'm on the golf course Fajr ke baad. I, spend 2.5 hours of 3 घंटे हो जाते हैं. I have Mandarin lessons 5 times a week. मेरी चीनी बेहतर होती जा रही है ज़बान. अच्छा मैं खानसामा भी हूँ, खाना भी पकाता हूँ. Okay, I've cooked for as much as 70 people. Dr. Mahnaz has been a beneficiary or been subjected to what I've cooked at times. So these are things, you have to find things in life beyond your work. You have to be identified, in my view, or satisfied beyond work. तो आपको कोई भी चीज़ है, चाहे आप ज़बान सीख रहे हैं, आप हाइकिंग कर रहे हैं, आप खाना पका रहे हैं, it doesn't matter what it is. You have to have something beyond work that gives you the downtime to recharge your brain, that is therapeutic. जो कुछ भी आपके लिए, आप शायरी कर रहे हैं, मतलब कि अशार दिख रहे हैं, पढ़ रहे हैं. आजकल तो I'll tell you, reading is a lost form. I'm just saying it, practical experience. ये जो किताब आपके पीछे अभी तक इसकी 500 कॉपीज नहीं बिकी हैं. अच्छा मुझे जब पब्लिशर ने कहा था हम 1000 कॉपीज प्रिंट करें, मैंने कहा पागल हो गए यार, 5000 तो मैं खुद निकाल दूंगा. वो है कैरेगस तो कुछ नहीं गई है. वो कहते हैं सर अभी 500 बिकी. वो कहते हैं ये बहुत बड़ा नंबर है. यार इस कंट्री ऑफ 220 million people, there are books that sell for 1000 copies is supposed to be a big run. So this is the lost thing. लोगों ने पढ़ना छोड़ दिया, or the way of reading has changed.
मुझे बताएं, there have been so many young people that you worked with, and this is a passion for you to grow them, to grow their companies, and they come to you with the brightest of ideas and also the passion and the will to succeed. Who do you bet on more, the horse or the jockey?
ये तो बड़ा simple formula है. 70% is the jockey. You betting. देखिए जब एक शख्स आपके पास आ रहा है आइडिया लेके, you betting on the idea, and whether that person is going to be able to execute or not, it depends on that individual. So 70% is on the jockey, 20% is on the horse. कि ये आइडिया जो है, देखिए मेरी नज़र के अंदर बहुत कम आइडियाज़ जो हैं जो ओरिजिनल आइडियाज, एंड आई एम नॉट लुकिंग फॉर नेसेसरली ओरिजिनल आइडियाज. बड़े मुश्किल होते हैं. एक फेसबुक क्रिएट करना, एक टिकटॉक क्रिएट करना, बड़ा मुश्किल होता है. बट इफ़ यू हैव रेप्लिकेशन ऑफ आइडियाज दैट कैन बी स्केल्ड, that have good unit economics, that are changing the customer journey, then you're on to something good. So, really the formula is, Kamisha, 70% on the jockey, जो कंपनी हमारी फेल हुई, प्लाइंट 10 ने तकरीबन अगर 40 कंपनीज हैं, हमारी 20 कंपनीज फेल हो गई हैं. ओके, फेलियर जो ज़्यादातर हुआ है वो बिकॉज वी बेट ऑन द रॉन्ग जॉकी. 20% ऑन द हॉर्स हो सकता है हमारे कुछ आइडियाज टाइम से पहले थे. इजी पैसा was certainly before its time, but we were able to sustain it, and then that what created the network effect. अगर हम एक साल बाद भाग जाते तो मतलब 50 इजी पैसा के बाद जो नेक्स्ट प्रोवाइडर आया था वो 2 साल बाद आया. Okay, by that time a noun had become a verb, and that's the golden thing we want to get to. कि जब जैज में जाके कोई कहता है कि इजी पैसा कर दे तो you know that you're जाके you've got there. तो you know that was what I was talking about. ये चीज़ जो है ना, this constant learning, this constant interaction, because अब आप अगर मैं बात करूं लोगों से, कोई मुझे क्रिप्टो समझा रहा है, कुछ मुझे वेब3 समझा रहा है, तो वो अपने तरीके से बहुत मुश्किल होता है मेरे लिए. बट व्हेन आई एम investing in these companies, I learn very fast because there's money on the table. So then your knowledge becomes more current of what's happening, and I'm constantly spending time. अगर आप देखें मैं दिन में 10 मीटिंग करता हूँ, मेरी मीटिंग भी 20 मिनट से ज़्यादा नहीं होती कोई मीटिंग. And that's why the book is short. It's written the way I think. It's written the way I do. So the message is given.
It's the way you run your meetings.
It's the way I run my meetings.
Jahara, would you speak to that rubric of evaluating the horse and the jockey, and what weightage do you place? I'm interested to hear because you also deal with so many.
So
young
exactly
individuals.
right. You're betting on the people, not on the idea, because the idea may change. It could be an idea that will never work. So when you work with these youngsters, you evaluate their idea. You ask them questions about what problem they're solving, and if it is actually a problem that needs to be solved. You make sure many of them are very excited, and some of them are creating products for, whether it's banks or whether it's textile companies, without understanding the business of textile or the business of banks. So you need to sort of get them to cool down a little bit, understand, connect them with people who have expertise in that domain, so that they can understand whether that problem can be solved and whether they are the right people to solve that problem. So those are the initial things that you need to do with these founders without demotivating them. Because once you've demotivated them, then you've taken the air out of their bubble and they're gone. But fortunately for us, there are so many bright young individuals, both young men and women, who are excited, who know what the problems this country is facing, and they're so excited to find solutions. Making money is secondary for them. First, they want to solve the problem. Once they've solved the problem, then scaling it, and then, of course, making money. Because many of them are from, middle-class families. And for them, they don't have a bucket of money to invest in their business. And nobody's going to give them money until a VC or someone sees, okay, they've got it. They've justified that the idea is going to work, and they've got those early customers. Then the VC puts in money, right? So until then, they've got to survive. And so they better have that resilience, and they better have that confidence that it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, then they should be ready to let go that ego. It's very difficult because it's their baby, and they don't want to say it's not going to work. But you need to take them through that, and sometimes they work on a second or third idea, and I've had founders who've come to me and the first idea has been a total flop. The second one has been a total flop, but the third one has really gone places. And now they've got businesses not only in Pakistan, but they've got customers all around the world. So that happens. But then you need to be very, very patient, and you need to have people who will mentor them, coach them, hold their hand through a lot of heartbreak before they can get there. But Pakistan needs these entrepreneurs, because how many jobs can we create for the number of young people we have in this country? True. So, definitely. You need to work with them, you need to guide them, and I think many people in this room can provide the kind of mentoring that they need.
Great. So, Nadeem, I have 2 final questions for you, quick answers to them. You wrote in your book, and I quote, "Life is a series of negotiations." I want you to just tell us, what do you think has been the most complicated, difficult negotiation that you've experienced in your professional life?
Professional life, right?
Professional life.
Because I said life is a series of negotiations, and I meant personal life as well, but I'm glad you're restricting. I think the first transaction, the acquisition, 51% of Telenor of Tamir Bank was one of the most difficult negotiations. And I've talked about that in the book. एक तरफ हमारे पास I think 3 महीने के पैसे रह गए थे. So I mean I was compelled to do that deal. On the other hand, they knew that the price would come down significantly. दूसरा ये कि एक ओरिजिनल प्राइस थी, उससे मटेरियल चेंज आ गया बिकॉज टेलेनॉर लॉस्ट इट्स लाइसेंस इन इंडिया, जिससे वो डील जो थी लोकल से इंटरनेशनल एमएनए में चली गई. सो आई कुडंट अफोर्ड दैट टाइम कि ये लोकल से इंटरनेशनल एमएनए में जाएगी, बैक टू हेडक्वार्टर, ये 3 से 9 महीने लग जाएंगे, 4 महीने बाद हमारे पैसे ख़त्म हो जाएंगे. सो आई हैड टू एक्ट वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट. But I also knew कि मेरे पास बैकअप है. Soros was talking to us, but Soros was a year away. 4 महीने के बाद हमारे पास पैसे नहीं रह गए थे. लेकिन अगर ये मैं पोजीशन ऑफ वीकनेस से करता, उस वक्त हमारी टॉक अबाउट हमारी वैल्यूएशन $25 million हुई. Back in 2008, I think, which was a huge valuation for a company that was losing money. When we exited, we were making $12.5 million. तो उन्होंने किताब में यही लिखा है कि जब मैं उनके सामने बैठा, 10-11 लोग बैठे हुए थे, एमएनए के, अकाउंटिंग के, कंसल्टिंग के, सब बैठे हुए थे, मैं अकेला बैठा हुआ था. तो जब उन्होंने मुझे एक नंबर दिया तो मैंने उनको कहा कि दिस डजंट वर्क फॉर मी, आई हैव मेनी ऑप्शंस. तो मैंने उनको एक पेपर पे नंबर लिखा और उनको दे दिया और मैं बाहर चला गया और मैंने सिगरेट पीनी शुरू कर दी. पहली सिगरेट ख़त्म हो गई, कोई बाहर नहीं आया. मैंने कहा थोड़ा वक्त लगता है. दूसरी सिगरेट ख़त्म हो गई. मैंने सोचा यार नदीम हुसैन आज गया नंबर ओवरप्लेड माई हैंड. तीसरी सिगरेट के हाफ वे थ्रू आए और वी वेंट इन. उन्होंने कहा यस योर नंबर इज फाइन. तो आई मीन दैट वाज negotiation where I had to negotiate a price of $25 million for a company that was losing $1 million. 4 months of money left, but we could have been valued at $10 million. Significant reduction. So that was one of the toughest negotiations I've done. The second negotiation was easier because we were making money. So it was a question of कि company की value 100 million है या 125 million है या 75 million है. There was a valuation. It wasn't कि अगर मैं ये deal नहीं करूँगा हम रोड पे आ जाएंगे, because we were making $12 million, $12.5 million. So it was a much more rich negotiation in terms of payout, but wasn't such a hard and tough negotiation.
So Mahnaz, just very quickly, I think as I see it, one of the biggest reasons for Nadeem's success is relationship building and the way he's been able to build a lot of relationships, because those count for a lot. And many young entrepreneurs do not understand that. They're just in their rooms building and then hoping the product's going to be good enough to sell. But I think the relationships, Nadeem, that you've been able to build over time, those count for a lot, not only for yourself, but also for the entrepreneurs and the ecosystem.
Absolutely. I think you bring about an excellent point. Mudassar.
Could I, since Jehan has touched on a few qualities, तो मैं ज़रा लोगों को बताना चाहता हूँ कि जो real superpower है वो क्या है नदीम की. I think that's the way he can hustle. I have not seen anyone else hustle like that, right? And the other superpower is storytelling. So I think these are the real reasons why he has been able to build something out of nothing. Yeah.
They absolutely are. So Nadeem sir, my last question for you is this. They say on the other side of fear there is no fear. Jack Canfield said, everything you want is on the other side of fear. So who learned this from whom? Was it Sherry Rahman from you or Nadeem Hussain from Sherry Rahman?
देखिए जो नहीं ये बहुत आसान सवाल है.
This is only a 2-word.
Because it's being recorded और यहाँ बहुत सारे लोग हैं. प्रोजेक्ट शेरी रहमान is here, I'm here. बहुत आसान है मेरे लिए. I think देखिए the different kinds of fears. The amount of fears I've had to conquer are business fears. ये कंपनी चलेगी नहीं चलेगी जाएगी. The fears she's conquered are life-threatening fears. She was on the same car, one car behind Benazir Bhutto. जब ये कराची में हादसा हुआ था, she was on the same container. तो उसके fears बड़े जो she's fearless that way. She doesn't care. तो उसका एक ज़माना था, I'll say it now, कि दो लोग लड़ रहे हैं, वो इसीलिए ask, is this a personal fight or anybody can join? तो वो it was a thing where what she leads. Very different way of how we conduct. Mine is much more planned. We're stuck, within that plan there's chaos, but there's always a plan. अब हम ये प्लान 10 का एक प्लान है कि इसको हम एग्जिट किस तरह करेंगे. रकमी बैंक का एक प्लान है. Hers is just a theme, it's not a plan. In the theme, she works out what she works to go. I think we've made some commonalities, but different traits. Both, I think, in our own minds, in technical side, are relatively failed as people.
Well, I think that brings me to the end of the questions, and I really want to thank you for an opportunity to be able to speak to you, to be able to speak to the panelists, and I hope our audience has enjoyed the conversation.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the CFA Society for doing this, and also Dr. Mahnaz for painstakingly going through putting these questions together, and the esteemed panelists for taking the time out. Thank you very much.
What a wonderful discussion it has been, everyone. And when I first spoke to Nadeem about it, when this book was about to be launched, I was not sure what we are getting into. But I was very confident that he will have an amazing story to tell us, and he must be writing a very good book. So I've been through the book. I would encourage all of you to buy a copy of the book and read it. As he said, the sell is even like 500, right? Less than 500 at the moment. But I think it's a very easy read, and there's a lot of key learnings in that. So on behalf of CFA Society Pakistan, I would like to thank Nadeem Hussain, first of all the panelists, and Dr. Mahnaz, and certainly every one of you for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Request you all to please stay on the stage. We just want to give up. May I request my team to help me with the plaques? So if you all could just, Ashwar sir, you can come in front, and then you can just give out the plaques to, first to Nadeem sir, please. Mudassar, Aqil sir, please.
So this is the second handshake between us in 2 days. We should get a room. Yesterday we signed up with Easypaisa to distribute our mutual funds.
Ms. Jehan, please. Mr. Adnan, Rizvi. And last and not the least, Dr. Mahnaz. Thank you so much. May I request all of you to please come in front for a group photograph, please? And the high tea is served right behind after this in the hall. There's a book signing counter over there, so all of those who want the book signed can just contact Nadeem Saab on the chair over there. All those who want the book signed, Nadeem Saab is here in this corner. Yeah, but this Hamza se bolo.